DJ Boggs quite correctly points out in my video about Jenrick and English identity that I don't really go into what English identity is. So let's try and do that a little bit. What is Englishness and what is Britishness? They often overlap, but they certainly have distinct connotations. To be English refers specifically to a national identity linked to England, its culture, history, often its peculiarities. Britishness, on the other hand, encompasses the broader identity of the United Kingdom, which includes England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and the UK, of course, goes further than that. It represents a more collective identity shaped by the political union of these nations. Shakespeare often delves into the complexities of English identity. In Henry V, he famously celebrates Englishness, this blessed plot, this England. No, it's not that right. It's this blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England. That's it. In Act 2, Scene 1. And he portrays England as a distinct, almost sacred space, defined by its unique culture and history a little bit. He sort of anticipates William Blake in so many ways. Charles Dickens portrays a more nuanced picture of English society, often highlighting its contradictions. In Bleak House, he contrasts the grandeur of London with the harsh realities of industrial England, illustrating how English identity can encompass both wealth and poverty, tradition and progress. Britishness is a product of the historical unification of the UK, particularly under the Acts of Union in 1707 with Scotland and 1801 with Ireland, and it developed as a more inclusive identity, accommodating the different nations under one political entity under the flag, the Union flag, while simultaneously expanding through the British Empire. In Great Expectations, Dickens critiques the Victorian obsession with class and social status, elements that became ingrained in British identity as the Brits were sort of imposed themselves on other peoples. The character Pip, who aspires to be a gentleman, reflects the aspirational and often conflicted nature of Britishness. But it's very much about this growth of the middle class. The migration issue, particularly in the post-war context, is multifaceted. After World War II, Europe, including Germany and Britain, faced significant labour shortages, and Germany invited Gastarbeiter, the guest workers, particularly from Turkey and southern Europe, under the assumption they would return to their countries after this temporary employment. However, many settled permanently, drawn by better economic opportunities, a more stable environment, because they met people, because they wanted to share in the aspirations of their neighbours. Douglas Murray, in fact, does this story very, very well, and he references Angela Merkel's exposition of this. He argues that guest workers were initially seen as a short-term solution to labour shortages, not as future citizens. However, they gradually became permanent residents, leading to this shift in society, which of course changes the dynamic and the perception of national identity. This situation contrasts with refugees who typically flee their home country because of persecution or conflict, seeking asylum rather than economic improvement. The distinction between migrants and refugees is crucial. Migrants move primarily for economic reasons, whereas refugees flee because of persecution, war, violence, or a personal problem. The post-war guest worker phenomenon in Germany reflects a migration for rebuilding and economic stability. It may even be identified as exploitative, different from the refugee movements caused by conflicts such as the Syrian civil war and the mess in Afghanistan. Several factors contributed to guest workers choosing to stay. First, the economic stability. The booming post-war economy of Germany, for example, provided a level of stability and prosperity that was hard to leave behind. The family reunification, where guest workers bring their families over to the host nation, establishing deeper roots in that country, and the cultural adaptation, where second and third generations born and raised in the host country identify more with that country than with their ancestral homelands. In the British context, post-war migration from Commonwealth countries, like the Windrush generation from the Caribbean, plays a significant role in shaping the modern British identity. And like the German guest workers, these migrants were initially invited in to help rebuild the nation, but faced cultural and radical issues like racism as they settled. These challenges which needed to be addressed, now they are addressed. In Our Mutual Friend, Dickens critiques the superficiality and the social mobility and the exclusion, the way Victorian society excluded people, mirroring how British identity has struggled to reconcile its imperial past with its multicultural present. But it was already there in embryonic form in Dickens. That's why Dickens is such a good author to reference, particularly when you're trying to define what is it that makes somebody British, English. What is it that makes somebody identify with this particular country or that particular country? Both Britishness and Englishness are complex and evolving constructs. Scottishness, Welshness, Irishness even more so. And Shakespeare's portrayal of a unified yet conflicted England in plays like King Lear, Richard II, even actually in Henry V, and Dickens' critique of Victorian society remind us that these identities have been contested and modified, and people. I mean, you know, the American thing where people always seem to have two identities. They are American, but where did you originally come from? You know, and as people say, oh, I've got an Irish background or an Italian background. I think we're coming rapidly to that conclusion. But the migrant issue adds this layer of complexity, challenging traditional notions of national identity, and forcing societies to redefine what it means to be English, British, German, French, American in an increasingly interconnected world.